Hi, welcome to my culminating task beyond the four walls. My name is Pelosi, and let's go into it. All right, so here's a little glimpse of what the project will look like as I talk through each section. Um, we kind of go into the hope and now, hope and why, then the shifts, then one small step, and then time for reflection and celebration. One quote that I go to that I feel is connecting is mathematics is not about numbers, equations, computations, or algorithms. It is about understanding. Um, from there, and this is by William Paul Thurston, who is an American mathematician. This is really connecting to everything because math is not a supposed not is not really supposed to be about this place of memorization or anything that is all about like strict or anything like that. It's all about really trying to understand the world and how to does it get applied. And that's the thing that a lot of my students were always like, why do I need to learn math? And I always told them it's the behind the scenes of how the world works. That you're learning the behind the scenes. It's you're learning about really how does mathematicians who do this every single day of their lives help the world get better. And so that's when we go into our first section. Right. So to kind of explain it on how it all starts is that pre-unit, each student's always given this like I can statements. That way they can understand what is they're looking forward to in this unit, what are they going to be able to do, and all these different things. And normally it goes into like this depth of knowledge to level 2 or higher. For the most part, though, it's more like a check-in for the students, a self-evaluation, and they kind of get to see like where they're struggling. They try to come up with goals and steps and let students choose what steps they want to take in order to be successful. However, this part really only really just shows them based through like most times the tests that they were given, the formatives, the summatives, whatever, and not really like the different things that really help them support their learning, and it doesn't take them beyond that. And pretty much how they evaluate themselves, as I said, assessments look more like test quizzes, projects, formative assessments, and even summative assessments. And so like it really is more like just really just more about memorization and also now I do have projects. But the projects is not projects what it's supposed to look like, what I feel it should look like. It's more so of just like hear the project, follow the plan, those different things. So let me just give you examples of it. So right here is examples of the assessments that they're given more so in the end, the summatives. Where it's like here's a summative, here's your questions, all those different things. However, it is not anything that is worth being amazed about, especially because a student can get an A on it, and that could just be because they either guessed or because they show that they do know it, but maybe they're just lucky enough. Also, too, it is 30% of their grade. So really, it's 30% of the grade that's more based on memorization and hope to like pass. And then here's a project of that they were just recently working on. And this project, even though it was a project, it really didn't go beyond the classroom, or it didn't involve anybody beyond the classroom. So the students had the idea of where they could work for an urban design company. Like they had to just imagine and that they were trying to make a new city for this client. And then they had to do all these different requirements. And the requirements really was already like in a box. They couldn't go beyond that at first. And those different things. That's when how they were given the first time. And pretty much from there, it just kind of like just shows that even though you're given a project, it really doesn't give much into it. It doesn't give much like autonomy to them. And so like my evaluations based on those is that like traditional assessments like standardized tests and final exams, it does evaluate their learning to a certain extent, as mentioned. However, it does not go further. It doesn't give them to say like, hey, I see that you're struggling in this area because you're like it doesn't yeah, it will just be like, oh, because you got this question wrong. That's why they're struggling. And then it's like, but really it could just be because the way something was worded, it could just be something the way that things were made, or something they just didn't understand because it was a test, or they have test anxiety. And so like those things really do not help. Now, experiences and supporting systems right now, honestly, I feel it does not give them the best ability. It actually prevents them. And honestly, it acts more like a barrier than pretty much allows them to higher order think. Because everything is based on memorization. To this day, like as long as education's been, everything's been more about memorization rather than higher order thinking. And if there is higher order thinking, it's in a box. It's not this open up the clouds and let it rain down kind of situation, or like let the sun shine through. It really happens, especially within my school. And so for that, it kind of like burdens or buries the idea to even have these desired outcomes of where assessment should promote active engagement, critical thinking, and public skills. And so that's actually why it's very important to have learner-centered assessments, because it gives them empowerment, customization, and key principles. So like empowerment for students to engage for where they motivate themselves, they have the autonomy to do things, and also to they show what they learn, not what their neighbor learned or what anybody else learned, what they learned. Because when you start giving them that version, then they start becoming more accountable on their learning rather than depending on somebody else who knows it better because they memorized. And also to it gives them more customized feedback for student progress, review, and practice, where it's like it's more customized according to what they need, according to where they stand, and all those different things. And also to it rises up these key principles to focus around engagement, empathy for the learner, clarity for the learner, and improvement of where the learner can improve and where this professor or teacher can improve. And so that's when we go into these futuristic hopes. And so the futuristic hope is that through final assessments, we're looking more so like to put it in like from a small scale to a big scale. Start with student-led portfolios, so where students build up these portfolios on what their learning journey is. Then, if students are feeling comfortable enough, they can lead it toward conferences where it has certain stakeholders like the teacher, the principal, all these different things, all these different people. Then from there, if they want to go even further, using those student-led conferences, they go into community solution projects, where it pretty much goes into the problem of a community and try to help build these projects. And from the projects, it goes to student-led exhibitions for awareness and all those different things. So where students are running these things and really to show that they're a citizen of not only school, but also their actual communities, rather than this like, oh, I'm going to school for just to get to graduate and I did nothing. And then I wouldn't exactly take out quizzes and tests. I just wouldn't give them the main focus. I just wouldn't give them the main like star. They would be more so like the supporting system to show, does the students understand this part? Does the student understand why they have to use these calculations? Why they it's more so of you still need to memorize it, but more so in a way that you understand that while you're doing these other parts, that's why. That the reason why there's certain things happening is because of the way these calculations work. And so that's more so what it is. It's not so much where they have to take a test and that's a good grade. It's like, no, these are more so your support systems for me to understand that do you understand what you're learning while also showing me how you can apply that learning. So those are more so of a balance rather than one side or the other. And that kind of goes into the reason why I say that is because within my own classrooms, my students cared about these values. They chose these values as a class, as individuals, on all these different things. And so what happened is that when I was looking at these, a lot of them shows responsibilities. Like a lot of them are respect or even leadership or even like motivation and all those different values that a learner-centered curriculum could look like, a learner-centered assessment could look like, or even things that just value learner-centered. And so it just showed amongst these parts that students themselves care. It's just that they have to be given the opportunity to show that. And unfortunately, the school system does not, so especially here in Hawaii. And then also too within my own school, pretty much like they want a pipeline of emerging ideas where advanced support core, new strategies and systems for delivering teaching and learning, like school design, teacher collaboration, student voice, and also too goes into focus of equity and excellence in core curriculums and supports. But unfortunately, even though that is the academic plan for my school, it doesn't really go much into it. It doesn't really go deep into where my school really wants to go. And that also too goes into a box. And so going into that, the reason why is also like key important too, and why I'm like even more so that shocking that our school doesn't really do this is because when I go into my own math department, my math department like gives the teachers a little autonomy, but unfortunately, because teachers are not given the skills for that, it's really hard. And because we also have to do it in the borderlines of the school as well. The reason why is first you go into the strengthened sense of belonging or aha outcomes where belonging, responsibility, excellence, aloha, total well-being, and Hawaii. And so like these are the things that the students are supposed to be centered on. And even instructors or teachers and educators. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And even with my own school, like our vision is to have the students achieve excellence in all that they do. But unfortunately, that doesn't even happen either. And how they're supposed to do that is do a safe, productive learning environment, a curriculum driven by standards and GLOs, open and timely communication with all stakeholders. Unfortunately, not those things don't happen as well. And then in the own math department, our thing is to be more a culturally responsive pedagogy. They empower students to advocate of the place, develop them as lifelong learners, strengthen their sense of self, while demonstrating a high cognitive mastery of the Common Core math standards. Sorry. And also too, by doing that is where they can apply it to real life, real scenarios. Now, scenarios can go beyond and actually just do real world projects and real world solutions. And the purpose of that is because in our core is that we want students to take their learning and apply it and just increase them. And that's through our olelo no ea e lawe ike a o a malama a e oi mau ka na'au. And so that's the whole purpose of this. And that's why it's honestly time for a shift. Really time for a shift because we have these ideas and thought processing, but we don't do it or show it. And so that's when we go into this part. And one way we can do that is by, so to kind of give context is Lahaina, Maui went through a wildfire, that lasted pretty much since last summer. And so like this past school year was a very hard one for them and everything like that. And so what And because our own community is prone to wildfires as well, especially during the summer, it's very honestly students need to understand that it's possible. It's just that you got to do the work. It's like we're here, understanding of wild prevention strategies tailored to Native Hawaiian communities, environment, and culture practices, knowledge of cost saving measures and financial management specific to local and Native community organizations. And also, to while doing that, they can apply geometric concepts in real world scenarios related to wildfire preventions and cost management. So that way, they understand that there's a community that needs help, but you still can apply math to help you out on those things. And also, the way we do it is through the idea of UDL, right? Thinking what is the goal end in mind? So, like for example, the goal end is for that students have this can build this space of like where they speak up about wild prevention, and how they do that is using the math to do other like research as part of the other major research that they'll be able to do, while also having them collab with people that from the community, even just having them promote more engagement, understanding the concepts, having hands-on learning experiences, and all those different things. So really, it's all about just building it up from bottom, from top to bottom. Well, bottom to top, depending how you look at it. If top is going to be your final, then from top to bottom. If bottom is your final, then bottom to top. So it's just backward thinking, backwards design. And how you can do that is we're gonna look through the community engineering project that I gave them in the very beginning. And how I sort of did it in the mind was that they do create their communities and all those things. And I gave them a lot more autonomy of what to choose and how to do different things. And also to just kind of help them understand what it takes for to build a community. And so unfortunately I did give them like what they had to draw or had to design with. And then because it's the end and they didn't have time, um, I pretty much gave them more as a bonus for wild safe communities. That way, like if we were to ever build and construct a community, what how would we have to keep it safe so that it's not another kind of situation? And so like the beginnings of my students. So I like to take this part more so of like this is the beginning. This was the beginning section, and so here are some really great examples of how my students did theirs, where they like one chose Doritoville and kind of like how they did community safe was that they for this one they chose to do a beach instead, so like where there's a source of water kind of thing, but there was a beach and those different things. Um, this student, they made sure there was like quite a bit of trees. They learned out that trees kind of help make it more community safe. And so did the other one in Monster City. They did like trees in different areas, plants in different areas, and those different things. That way, it just kind of like, and also they drew a beach too, to where there's water, and it's not just this dry land situation. And so, like they did really well in the very beginning parts. Could have gone deeper, of course. But unfortunately, timing wise and the way I structured it, unfortunately, didn't really allow them to go deeper. But also to time wise, that's what was the key is that timing was everything. And that actually kind of goes into this how we could have gone further was one even more so of project based learning, where students will work in groups to research, plan, and present their wildfire prevention um, cost management strategies. Like if they want to go beyond the job, um, they go into more role playing exercises where they can simulate community meetings to discuss and justify their plans. Community engagements where we could have invited guest speakers from like local fire departments, financial institutions, wine culture experts to provide insights and feedback on their projects, and even just have these building on global skills of communication, critical thinking, and intercultural competence. So we're really making sure that students understand that projects in school can go further. And so what they could have chose from too was that to go even further, they could have chose whether they want to make a prevention plan for the community that integrates traditional land management practices and modern fire safety techniques. They could have been more on the financial side where they're like, I'm not somebody who puts my hands in the ground, but I'm somebody who does math. So I can create a budgeting and cost management plan for the community organizations and consider the values and practices. Maybe I'm not so much, but maybe I can look at the grand scheme of maps and come up using physical models or geometry software to design evacuation routes in the event that something happens. And that's actually what it is too, is that their community only has one way in and one way out with very few minimum escape routes. So that could have been another thing too, is how can these private locations fit in the community? Also too, they could have done apply angle relationships formed by parallel lines and transversals to optimize resource allocations in the wall prevention and cost management plans. So that's more so of like working with the people who are budgeting and using that to help figure out those plans. So like here's a plan that written all out is that for student work, student will design and build a model of the city they live in. Um, and how they do that, they can just like literally Google it and look at the communities, show connections to the units, like just to show that like, hey, we understand geometry, we understand the lines, the intersections, all those different things, while incorporating your fire safety plan. Communications and learning, students will create a portfolio. So that's what I chose. Um, Small scale would be a portfolio so that they can document their design process, decision making, and final city plans. Um, Throughout the time that students will engage in self-reflection activities, evaluating their progress and identifying areas of growth. Some authentic audience that the students will present these to will be city models to authentic us, such as like community members, urban planners, so people who do this all the time, firefighters, agriculturalists, local officials, etc. Where I just have these different ideas of like, hey, here is my plan. What do you think? And is this possible? And depending on who is listening and who has the power to do so, could take these into considerations if they really want to. The reason why also too, it's very important for students to have a connection to audience. One, it provides meaningful feedback, where they're hearing people who do this every single day of their lives. Also too, it fosters communication and presentation skills to where it enhances their presentation abilities. Like they're not just talking to a bunch of students, they're talking to people who do this. They're talking to the experts. They're talking to the ones that like, oh wow, you do this every single day. And this can help me do a lot better. And also to people who know what it's like to present, know what it's like to present something I maybe might not get through, can give them a lot more authentic feedback. Another one is promotes accountability and ownership. Like students feel like more valued. Like this is my things. These are my. And knowing that they're gonna do it for real people, like real jobs and real like audiences, authentic audiences that who do this, it allows students to feel more accountable and saying like, you know what, I should do a good job. I should take pride into what I do and all those different things. And also to it just provides a more authentic assessment. And so what I mean by that is that like they get to actually assess real world problems rather than scenarios. It's actually real world applications, real world focuses, real world impact and potential rather than just the knowledge and context knowledge and then a scenario that could be fake when really it's like, no, this is a real deal scenario. This is a real deal application. Another one, it allows them to just like maybe look further into their future because a lot of these kids come from families that really just don't really show that it's possible to go beyond one another or even show that it's possible to go beyond construction, possible to go beyond the typical like popular jobs like McDonald's or something like that. Like nothing's wrong with those, but like if they really have a more like passion they can go beyond those things. And so I guess I'm a great word to network with people and exploration opportunities. Also, too, if sense of the community and collaborations where they get to collab with more people, build a community a lot more better, and also helps the community support the students. Also, to continuous improvement, like students are definitely having more growth and areas of where improvements and also feedback, reflections, and personal development, to be honest. And so that's what I'm going towards one small step for math. More specific and identify the how. So the one small step that I decided to do and chose was called journal designs. So as a small step towards a larger portfolio defense, students will maintain design journals throughout the project. These journals will serve as a space for students to one, document their designs, including sketches, research, and decision making, so that when they go to do, they already have everything in one space. Um, Also, too, they can put down their thoughts. So kind of like a diary, almost like a planning diary, where also too, where they reflect on challenges faced and strategies used to overcome them, seeking corporate feedback from peers, instructors, and guests. Self-assess their progress and identity areas for improvement. How we do this is that, and this is more so the plan of to evaluate the impact of journals. I would collect the following data, like student feedback through surveys and interviews on the journal experiences. So like pretty much seeing how they're feeling about the journals, maybe talk to them about it. Observations of student engagement and collaboration during journal work, so like what's happening. Also analysis of like their journal content, like including the quality of reflections and evidence of growth over time. So seeing how they were from the very beginning, looking over their journal, seeing are they growing, all those different things. So that'll be like the fun of it would be to collect these type of data story. It shows like their own thought process of like, do they not like it? Do they like it? And seeing like, okay, it works for some, doesn't work for all those different things. And also just to show them that great inventors most times starts in a journal or like have everything in one place for the most part. And that's when we go into our time for reflection and celebration, more so the plan for it. And so for the most part, this is the rubric for the most part of how it would be like collaboration. Did the students have actively collaborate with necessary collaborators? So like for example, if we bring in a guest or experts, did they really collaborate? Did they collaborate with their peers? If it wasn't a group project, did they effectively contribute? Intercultural competence, did they show that they respect for the Hawaiian culture, integrates culture insights, all those different things. Or even beyond that, did they critically think? Did they do practical problem solving? And so pretty much that's what the majority of this rubric's all about, is more so of like, did they do the things that were more for center them and touch upon these things for the most part. How they can do that is also is through audience and format. So like share plan with a professional learning community of teachers, administrators, community stakeholders. Um, how they do that is possibly through interactive workshops or seminars for discussion, collaborations, alignment to vision for impact, focus on integrating real world issues with cultural relevancies, emphasize critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, intercultural competence. So that's even more ways of like going beyond and within the progress of making it happen. So like as you said, like portfolio, right? So it only stays within the portfolio, but to take it beyond that, we can do even bigger, like the workshops, all those different things. How we will make sure that happens, so and make sure that we improve is the improve our timing, so I would design for lesson design and collaborations, provide professional development for critical skills. So like investing more so in the times of the students, fostering culture, value, innovation, and collaboration, use of technology, technology beyond like not just only like computers, but like other technologies that could be applicable to them. And also make sure it's equitable access for everybody. Space, definitely creating a culturally reflective learning environment, design flexible spaces for extracurricular activities, resources, make sure that they allocate resources for culturally relevant experiences, cultivate partnerships for additional support. So, for example, like going to our different farms that are helping in these areas, working with our board of water supply, all these different community stakeholders that really make an impact on why a community should and shouldn't be in a space of possibly being burnt down. The way I would celebrate them is that students celebrating their demonstration of increased engagement, ownership, and self awareness. Um, through the small step, the use of their journals to give them autonomy of thought processing. Celebrate students' progress and achievements, emphasize their learning process over the final product, fostering a culture of reflection and continuous improvement, empower them to take charge of their learning, and also to continue to help them develop the essential skills for success in the 21st century. And so that is it for my culminating task. And I hope all is well, and thank you for listening.